They wanted to break you, didn't they? They threw their words at you like stones, sharp and jagged, hoping to wound your soul. Every insult, every attempt to crush your spirit was aimed at making you bow, to make you feel small, to make you feel invisible. But there's something they never saw coming: your silence. They expected a reaction, a cry, a scream, a fight. They didn't know that in your silence you were not defeated, you were not broken, you were gathering strength. The weight of the world bears down on you, doesn't it? You've carried it for so long it's become a part of who you are. The judgment from others, family, friends, even strangers, always seemed louder than your own voice. They tell you who you should be, what you should do, how you should feel. They drown you in their expectations, each one louder and more demanding than the last. You don't belong, they say. You'll never make it, they claim. Your dreams are too big, they whisper behind your back. The world sees your struggle, but it doesn't see your strength. They look at you and all they see is your silence. They don't understand it. They think it's weakness. But what if I told you that silence is your most powerful weapon? What if I told you that in those moments when you said nothing, when you chose to absorb their venom without fighting back, you were not surrendering, you were preparing. You were saving your strength for something greater. They wanted you to respond, to show your hurt, to fall apart, but you didn't. And in your silence, they never saw the storm brewing beneath the surface. They never saw the fire waiting to ignite. You may feel trapped in their world of words, drowning in their opinions, but understand this: your silence, your stillness, is not defeat. It's power waiting to explode. You've been underestimated. You've been pushed into corners. But in that corner, you were not broken. In that silence, you found your truth. In the absence of their noise, you found your voice. They thought they could dim you with their insults, but what they didn't know is that their words only fanned the flames of your resilience. Your silence was never weakness. It was the calm before the storm. And now it's time for them to feel the fire you've been quietly building. You've felt it, haven't you? The weight of the world pressing down on your chest, suffocating you with every breath. Those long nights when the silence seemed to stretch endlessly and you were left alone with your thoughts. You've fought battles, some of them unseen by anyone but you. You've carried burdens that no one could possibly understand. The kind that leave scars deeper than any wound on your skin. Those days, the ones that feel like they will never end. When it seems like every step you take only drags you further into the darkness. The world tells you to keep going, to keep pushing, but they don't know the cost. They don't know the exhaustion, the frustration, the pain of trying and failing, trying again only to fall harder. The betrayal stings, doesn't it? The ones you trusted, the ones you thought would have your back. Where are they now? They turned away when you needed them most. They left you to fight your battles alone. And the words, the cruel words they threw at you, they still echo in your mind. You'll never make it. You're not good enough. Why even try? You hear them in your dreams, in your waking moments, as if they're branded onto your very soul. They didn't just doubt you, they discarded you. They laughed when you stumbled, and when you fell, they were nowhere to be found. They weren't there to lift you up. They were too busy enjoying the view from the sidelines, too busy watching you struggle, waiting for you to fail. And in those moments, when you were at your lowest, when it felt like the whole world was against you, it was as if the universe itself was conspiring to crush your spirit. The weight of every failure, every rejection, and every insult felt like it was pulling you into an abyss. You wondered if you would ever see the light again. You felt small, unworthy, like maybe you weren't meant for something greater. Those insults, those judgments, they didn't just hurt your feelings. They cut deeper. They sank into your soul, twisting and turning, making you question everything you knew about yourself. They made you doubt your worth, your purpose, your very existence. And in the silence of your suffering, it seemed like there was no way out, no hope, no way to rise above the pain. But here's the truth you need to hear right now. That pain, that feeling of being lost in the darkness, it doesn't define you. Those moments of despair when it felt like the world was crushing you under its weight were the moments that prepared you for this, for the rise, for the transformation. Every insult, every betrayal, every time you felt abandoned, it all happened for a reason. It's the fire that's been forging you, shaping you into something they never saw coming. Your real enemy isn't them. It's not the words they've thrown at you or the backs they've turned on you when you needed them most. No, the real villain, the one that's been sabotaging your every step, is the darkness inside you. It's the fear that's whispered in your ear, telling you that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve to succeed. It's the doubt that has been planted deep in your heart, like a seed that has taken root and grown into a twisted, suffocating vine. Every time you looked at yourself and wondered if you were capable of more, every time you hesitated, thinking that maybe you weren't cut out for greatness, that was the fear feeding. It's the fear that tells you to play it safe, to stay small, to stay quiet. It's the doubt that says, Don't reach for more. Don't even try, you'll just fall again. These thoughts, they come in like shadows, whispering, creeping into your mind when you least expect it. And when you're vulnerable, they multiply. They twist your reality, make you see yourself as something less than what you truly are. They tell you to listen to the judgment of others, to believe that the world is right when it says you don't have what it takes. These doubts, they hold you captive. They make you believe that you're broken, that you're unworthy, that the fight is too much for you. The world may have cast you aside, but it's your own fear that has kept you there. It's your own doubt that has chained you to a past that's holding you back. The world may see you as weak, but it's not them that makes you weak. It's the darkness inside you, the doubt you've fed for years, the fear you've let fester. You've become comfortable with it. It's been there so long, you've forgotten how to live without it. It's almost like an old friend, constantly reminding you of your limitations. The fear tells you this is as far as you go. This is your place in the world. Don't reach any higher. And every time you listen, every time you shrink back, it wins. But here's the truth. This enemy, this fear, it has no power over you unless you allow it. It's a shadow that disappears when you stand in the light of your own strength. You've been feeding it for too long. Now it's time to starve it. You've been there, haven't you? The insults, the mockery, the judgment, they came from every direction. People saw you as easy prey, a target to throw their hurtful words, their harsh opinions. They expected you to lash out, to fight back, to prove them wrong with your anger, with your word. They wanted to provoke a reaction. But what did you do? You chose silence. And let me tell you, that silence, your silence, it was not a sign of weakness. It wasn't submission. It was a conscious decision, a decision to not let their words define you. They thought that if they pushed you hard enough, you would break. That if they insulted you long enough, you would snap. They thought they could shake you with their cruelty, make you lash out in retaliation. But you didn't. You stood there, quiet, and in your silence you held the most powerful weapon of all, the power to decide when and how you respond. They wanted you to react, to give them the satisfaction of seeing you hurt, but you refused. Your silence wasn't about cowardice, it was about strength. You refused to let them dictate your emotions, to let them see the effect their words had on you. You knew that to react would be to lower yourself to their level, to give them control over your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. Instead, you chose to hold your ground, to remain unmoved in the face of their noise. They expected you to crumble, to lose yourself in their drama, but you didn't. You chose to stand tall in your stillness, to remain composed, to hold on to your dignity. In that silence, you made a statement louder than any insult they could throw at you. You told them that their words had no power over you. You told them that their opinions didn't define you. You were in control, even when it seemed like the world wanted to tear you apart. Your silence was the calm before the storm. It was your way of taking the high road, of refusing to be drawn into their chaos. And now, as you stand on the other side of that silence, you see it for what it truly was. Not a surrender, but a strategy. It wasn't about avoiding confrontation. It was about choosing your battles wisely. It was about refusing to give energy to something that didn't deserve it. That silence, the one they misinterpreted as weakness, was the beginning of your strength. Every moment you held your tongue, every time you chose to walk away instead of fighting back, you were building something stronger within you. You were teaching yourself how to rise above the noise, how to rise above the insults, and how to let nothing bring you down. In the face of everything they threw at you, you could have broken. You could have let the anger rise up, let the frustration spill out. You could have fought back with words, with fists, with anything to release the pressure building inside you. But you didn't. You chose something far more powerful than reaction. You chose restraint. In that moment, when the storm of insults and negativity was pounding down on you, you stood firm. Like an unyielding mountain that refuses to bow to the storm, your silence remained unshaken. The world tried to bend you, tried to break you, but you did not bend. You did not break. You chose to remain still. And in that stillness, in that refusal to yield, something began to grow stronger inside you. It was not the noise of retaliation that made you stronger. It was your decision to hold your ground. Every time you resisted the urge to shout, to lash out, to prove them wrong with your anger, you were creating something more powerful than they could ever understand. Resilience. You see, true power does not lie in the act of fighting back. True power lies in the ability to remain grounded in the face of chaos, to hold on to your peace when everything around you is falling apart. When they pushed you, you didn't let their energy pull you down into the mud. You chose to remain above it. You chose silence, not because you were afraid, but because you knew that reacting would only give them control over you. Your silence wasn't weakness. It was the strength of someone who understood that not every battle is worth fighting. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to stay still, when to let the storm rage around you, and when to wait for the right moment to strike. In those moments of stillness, you were gathering power. You were sharpening your focus. You were making yourself invincible. The world will try to tell you that silence is passive, that it's giving up, that it's cowardice. But those who truly understand power know that silence is a weapon. It's the calm before the storm, the pause before the inevitable rise. Your restraint, your choice to hold your ground in the face of adversity, is where your true power lies. It is the quiet before you emerge, stronger than ever, ready to claim what is rightfully yours. Now, the world will see that silence wasn't your weakness, it was your strength. And from that strength, your resilience will be unstoppable. They've always misunderstood it, haven't they? The world, the people who doubted you, the ones who hurled their insults and cast their judgments, they see silence as a weakness. They think that when you don't react, when you don't fight back, you're surrendering. They see it as a void, an emptiness, a sign that you have no power, no strength, but they couldn't be more wrong. You see, silence is not absence. It's not the empty void they believe it to be. It's not a space where nothing happens. It is, in fact, the sharpest weapon you've ever wielded. It is the calm before the storm, the stillness before the explosion of change. In their ignorance, they thought your silence was defeat. They thought it was you retreating, stepping back, shrinking away. But what they didn't see, what they couldn't understand, is that every moment you didn't react, every time you resisted the urge to strike back, you were setting fire to their illusions. The longer you stayed silent, the hotter the flames burned beneath the surface. Every moment of restraint, every instance where you chose to remain still instead of retaliate, was like fire licking at the feet of your oppressors, scorching their pride, their arrogance. They didn't see it then, but they do now. Every insult they threw at you was nothing compared to the power of your silence. It burned deeper, left scars in places they couldn't see, in places they didn't know existed. You held your ground, didn't you? You stood there, quiet, and in that quiet you were creating a force they could never reckon with. The silence they saw as weakness was actually a trap, a slow building storm, and now it's too late. They're starting to feel it. They thought they could break you with words, but in your silence you've been forging your strength. You've been feeding your fire, stoking the flames of your own transformation. Every time you didn't give in, every time you refused to let them control you, you were preparing for the moment when everything would change. And that moment is coming. They won't be able to hide from it. Because your silence, it's not just absence, it's the prelude to a roar, a reckoning, a force that will rise from the ashes of what they thought was your downfall. Their insults, their cruelty, their attempts to tear you apart, those were just the sparks. Your silence is the fire that will burn brighter than any insult they ever threw at you. And when it does, they will realize too late that their words were nothing compared to the power of your silence. They thought you were weak, didn't they? They watched you, waiting for you to snap, for you to give in to the pressure, for you to show them just how much their words hurt. They thought they had you figured out because you didn't yell back, because you didn't lash out in anger, because you didn't cry out in pain when they tried to crush you under the weight of their insults. They misjudged you. They couldn't hear the storm inside you, the storm that raged with a fury they couldn't comprehend. They couldn't see the fire that had been quietly smoldering beneath the surface, growing hotter, stronger with every moment of restraint. They thought they had broken you. They thought your silence meant surrender, that your calmness was the result of defeat. But what they failed to understand is that silence is not a sign of weakness. It is the very foundation of your strength. It was never about not feeling pain. It was about choosing not to let them see it. You didn't react because you knew that if you did, you'd give them exactly what they wanted. They wanted to break you, to see you crumble under the weight of their judgment. But you didn't. You stayed still, you stayed quiet, and that in itself was more powerful than any retaliation. They thought your stillness was passivity. They couldn't hear the roar building inside you, the way your heart thundered with every insult, the way your spirit burned brighter with every attempt to break you. They couldn't see the force gathering, the strength you were silently cultivating in those moments when they thought you were shrinking. And now they realized the truth that you were never defeated, the truth that your silence was never about weakness. It was about resilience, about strength, about waiting for the right moment to rise. You were never quiet because you had nothing to say. You were quiet because you knew that some things are too powerful to be wasted in a reaction. You knew that your rise would be louder than any of their noise. They misread you. They saw your silence as surrender. But you've always known what they couldn't, that your silence wasn't weakness. It was your way of building something stronger than they could ever understand. And now, they're starting to see it. Too late, perhaps, but they're starting to feel the strength of your unspoken power. The moment has come. Do you feel it? The shift, that quiet whisper in your soul, that's been growing louder, stronger, unstoppable. The moment when everything they thought they knew about you begins to crumble. They thought you were finished. They thought their insults, their judgments, their betrayals had crushed you, that you were nothing more than the sum of your wounds. They thought you would stay silent forever, that your quietness was your end. But here's the truth. The moment they thought you were finished, that was the moment you began to rise. It wasn't the words they threw at you, nor the betrayals they served you, that determined your fate. No, it was the silence you chose to live in. It was in that stillness that you were being forged, quietly, invisibly, beneath the surface. Every moment you stayed calm, every time you didn't react in the way they wanted, you were feeding the fire inside of you. That fire was growing, waiting for the right moment to ignite. And now, that moment has arrived. You are no longer the person they thought you were. You are no longer defined by their insults or their judgments. You are no longer bound by their opinions or their expectations. You have awakened. The fire that was once a flicker in the shadows is now a blazing inferno, ready to consume everything in its path. The silence that once felt like a trap is now your greatest power. It's the wellspring from which your strength flows. They never saw it coming. They never knew that in their attempts to break you, they were only feeding the very fire that would burn brighter than they could ever imagine. And now, you stand at the precipice of everything they feared. You've been quiet for too long, but now, the storm inside of you is breaking free. The strength they couldn't see in your silence is now unfolding, ready to take form, to rise, to conquer. The dormant power inside you has awoken, and nothing can hold you back. They thought they had won. They thought they had silenced you. But what they didn't realize is that your silence wasn't an end. It was the beginning of something unstoppable, something fierce. And now, as you step into this new power, you will make them realize that the moment they thought you were finished, that was the moment you were reborn. And this time, you won't be silenced. This time, you will roar. You were never the victim. Never. You may have felt small, you may have felt powerless in those moments when the world tried to tear you apart, but that was never your truth. That was never your story. The world wanted you to believe you were broken, that you were weak, that you were nothing more than a pile of shattered pieces waiting to be swept away. But in reality, you were the volcano. You were just waiting for the right moment to erupt. All this time, you've been gathering strength. Every insult, every setback, every betrayal, it was all part of the process. It was like the pressure building up inside a volcano, slowly but steadily until it reached a breaking point. You weren't drowning in your pain. No, you were letting it fuel you. You were letting it transform you into something unstoppable. You were waiting for the right moment, the moment when you would no longer stay silent, the moment when your eruption would change everything. That moment is here. You've stepped out of the darkness, out of the silence, and you are ready to rise. The world thought it had broken you, but it only made you stronger. They thought you were drowning in your hurt, but you were simply storing up your power for the eruption that's coming. And now, they will feel the full force of what they underestimated. You're no longer bound by their judgments, by their expectations, by their attempts to silence you. You've shed the skin of victimhood, and what remains is a force of nature, unpredictable, powerful, and impossible to ignore. You are the storm they never saw coming. You are the fire they tried to extinguish, but you only burned brighter. Every moment of silence, every time you held your tongue, it was a preparation. And now, that preparation has transformed you into something far greater than they could ever have imagined. You are no longer at the mercy of the world. You are the one who holds the power now. The power to rise, to reclaim your space, to show the world exactly what happens when you stop being silent and start owning your strength. You've turned your pain into power. You've turned your silence into an unstoppable force. And now nothing can hold you back. You are no longer a victim of the world's cruelty. You are the one who will make the world bend to your will. This is it, the defining moment, the moment when everything changes. When you step into your full power and embrace the force you've always had inside of you. All those moments of silence, all those times when you resisted the urge to react, to fight, to prove them wrong, those were not signs of weakness. They were steps, carefully calculated, building towards something far greater than anyone could ever understand. Now you've learned the truth. Your silence wasn't surrender. It was the calm before the storm. It was the quiet preparation for your rise. Every time you held back, every time you stayed silent, you were not backing down. You were strengthening yourself. You were planting the seeds for a power that would be so intense, so unrelenting that nothing would be able to stop it once it fully awakened. And now, it has. The power is surging through your veins. Can you feel it? Can you feel the fire igniting inside you? The strength flowing through every part of your being? This is your moment. This is the moment you have been waiting for. The world thought they could break you. They thought they could push you into submission. But now, your silence isn't deafening. They can hear your roar. That roar will burn everything that tried to hold you down. It will burn the doubts that once consumed you. It will burn the fear that tried to paralyze you. It will burn the voices of the people who told you that you were nothing, that you would never amount to anything. Now, they will hear you. They will feel the force of your awakening. They will understand that the silence they mistook for weakness was the foundation of your power. You've spent long enough in the shadows. You've spent long enough quietly preparing for this moment. Now, it's time to rise. It's time to step into the person you were always meant to be. The person who doesn't wait for permission. The person who doesn't shrink in the face of adversity. The person who refuses to be defined by anyone but themselves. So feel it. Feel the power coursing through you. Feel the roar building deep within you. This is your time. No more silence. No more hiding. The world will hear you and they will tremble in the face of your power. You have transformed. You have become a force of nature, a storm that cannot be contained, a fire that cannot be extinguished. Every insult, every moment of doubt, every attempt to make you feel small, they only served one purpose. They fed your fire. They thought they were breaking you, but in reality they were only adding fuel to the blaze that was already growing inside of you. They burned you, but in that fire, you didn't wither. You didn't crumble. You grew. They mocked you, they doubted you, they tried to tear you down, but in every moment of their cruelty, you soared. They thought they could diminish your power by throwing their negativity your way, but they didn't know that every word they spoke, every sneer, every insult only made you stronger. It was like the wind that fans the flames, turning what should have been your destruction into your ascension. You didn't fall, you rose. Now look at you. Can you see the strength within you? Can you feel the power you've cultivated from all those trials, from all those moments when they thought you wouldn't survive? You're no longer the person they saw before. You're something greater, something unshakable. You have reclaimed your agency, your power, your ability to stand tall against any insult, against any betrayal, against anything the world throws at you. You are aware now, more than ever, of the depth of your strength. You know that no matter what comes next, you will stand, you will rise. You will fight with everything you have. You are no longer a victim of circumstance or other people's opinions. You are the creator of your own destiny. Your silence was never about being passive. It was the quiet before the storm, the gathering of power, the reclaiming of what was always yours. And now that you've found it, you are unstoppable. Every challenge, every enemy, every moment of doubt, none of it can take away what you've become, because you know your worth now. You know what you're capable of, and there's no turning back. You are a force of nature, and nothing can ever diminish your strength again. This is it, the final confrontation. The moment you stand face to face with the fears and doubts that once held you down. For so long, these shadows loomed over you, casting doubt on your potential, trying to convince you that you were unworthy of success, of peace, of power. They thrived on your uncertainty, on your hesitation, on your silence. But now, everything has changed. Now, they cower before you. They thought they controlled you, didn't they? The doubts, the fears, the people who tried to break you, they thought they had you cornered. They thought your silence was weakness, that your stillness was a sign that they were winning. But they were wrong. The silence you once chose was never defeat, it was strategy. And now that silence has transformed into the most powerful weapon of all, your will to rise. Can you feel it? The power that courses through your veins now? The power that has been forged in the fire of every betrayal, every insult, every moment of doubt? That power is no longer contained. It is pouring out of you, and it is unstoppable. The oppressors who once tried to diminish you, they now cower in fear, realizing that they never truly controlled you. They never truly had the power. The doubts that once clouded your mind, they are scattering like ashes in the wind. You are no longer bound by them. Your silence, your restraint, your quiet strength, it has all led to this moment where you stand ready to rise, to conquer, to claim what is yours. No longer will you shrink in the face of adversity. No longer will you allow others to define your worth. You have stepped into your full power, and now the world will witness it. You are no longer the one who is controlled. You are the one who will lead, who will inspire, who will rise above everything that once held you back. This is your moment. The moment when all the fears, all the doubts, all the voices that tried to hold you down are silenced by the force of your will to rise. And now you stand unshaken, ready to claim your destiny. You've made it. You've shed the weight of doubt. You've faced the fears, the oppressors, and the voices that tried to keep you in the shadows. You've emerged from the silence, not broken, but stronger, sharper, and more powerful than ever. Now the world is waiting for you. The path ahead is yours to claim, and nothing can stand in your way. It's time to stop doubting. It's time to stop hesitating. You have found your power, and now it's time to move forward with everything you have. The strength you've cultivated through every moment of silence, every act of restraint, every challenge you've faced, it's all been leading to this. You are ready, ready to rise, ready to conquer, ready to take your place in the world with a force that no one can ignore. So stand tall, because the silence that burned them, it's the same silence that will now carry you to places you've never dreamed. Speak when you need to, act when you must, but let your silence remain the sharpest edge of all. It is your greatest weapon, the power to move with purpose, to strike with precision, and to rise with unshakable strength. The world won't see you coming. They'll hear your roar, they'll feel your power, and they'll know. You are no longer the one they tried to silence. You are the one who will rise above, who will conquer, who will stand tall and unbroken. Now, it's your turn. The world is waiting for you to step into the power you've always had within. So rise, and let nothing stop you. Look at where you are now. Look at the journey you've made from pain to empowerment. You have walked through the darkness, through the fire, through the silence, and emerged stronger than you ever thought possible. What once tried to break you, what once sought to diminish your spirit, has only served to make you unbreakable. You've transformed, you've risen. The world may have tried to silence you, to make you feel small, to convince you that you didn't matter. But look at you now, standing tall, unshaken, with a fire that burns brighter than ever before. You are no longer defined by the struggles of your past, the betrayals, or the insults. You are free from their weight, free from the opinions of those who tried to hold you down. Now, you walk forward with the power that's always been inside of you. You move with purpose. You step boldly into the future, knowing that nothing can ever stop you again. The roar that was once quiet, once hidden, now echoes through every step you take. It is the sound of your strength, your resilience, your unyielding will to rise and never fall again. The world may have tried to silence you, but now your roar is louder than ever. And nothing can stop you now. The journey of silence is over. The journey of power has begun.